Hello and welcome to another episode of WolfeSound podcast. Today's topic is going to be narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. It's going to be a general introduction and brief history of narcissism. And then the following episodes are going to be very specific areas of narcissism and narcissistic behavior, as well as how you can effectively deal with them. So first, narcissistic personality disorder is a diagnosis. It's only a doctor can give that diagnosis, but narcissism is not a diagnosis. It's just a set of character traits. And regardless of whether it's a diagnosis or not, be sure that your decision-making process in terms of the people around you are based on the end result of that relationship, whether it's costing you too much or if it's a healthy relationship. If somebody is narcissistic and they're harming you, it doesn't matter really if they have the disorder or not. You have to decide based on the bottom line of that relationship. So let's start with narcissistic personality disorder. I thought it is understood that you are my prey. You don't get to have a say. This quote sums up the attitude and mindset of a narcissist and how they view the people in their lives. They are just tools. Here's the misconception. Many people think of excessive self-love when they think of narcissism, be it a disorder or not, but in truth, they're driven by deep-seated self-loathing. They spend their lives masking it with arrogance, self-obsession, and self-adulation. They idealize and devalue themselves just as they do unto others. And this is the fragmentation of the narcissist within. They project onto you what they actually try to avoid to be aware of in themselves, because they really have a deep-seated self-loathing. So it's rather an unrequited self-love doomed by self-rejection. The only way to numb this painful reality is by way of projecting it on you. So whatever they invested so much in to create this facade about themselves, so that when they look in the mirror, they see the mask. They don't want to see who they are, because for some reason, they believe that if you know who they truly are, and if they see themselves, they're going to be hated and rejected and abandoned, which is one of the biggest fears of a narcissist, is to be abandoned and rejected. The criteria in the DSM is more descriptive of the malignant narcissist and the grandiose type, but there are other types that we're going to cover. So the criteria, according to the DSM, has an inflated, grandiose sense of self-importance, is preoccupied with fantasies of success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. You have to note that even though everybody, of course, dreams of these things, the narcissist is not really willing to put in the work. They try to manipulate their way through it or step over other people. Believes that he or she is special and can only be understood by other special or high status people. And this is why you see that narcissists, they can treat people with lots of charm and kindness and feigned kindness and feigned empathy, only because they want something out of it, but it doesn't mean that it's genuine. Requires excessive admiration, possesses a sense of entitlement, takes advantage of others, lacks empathy, envious of others or believes others are envious of him or her, behaves in an arrogant, egotistical, or haughty way, exploitative and manipulative, mostly emotionally and mentally abusive, but physical, financial, sexual, or spiritual abuse is not beyond them. They engineer and feed off drama. They triangulate. Triangulation is one of the biggest things, because they don't want people to team up against them. It's part of preserving that mask and to keep themselves safe. They gaslight. They definitely want to make you think you're crazy and make everybody else around you think you're crazy, because once you find them out, which they kind of expect in the long term, they don't want people to believe you. So it's kind of a preemptive strike. If people think you're crazy, then they're not going to believe you when you expose them. never gives credit unless for professional gain, lack of responsibility and accountability. So let's focus on narcissists, not people with narcissistic personality disorder. I am not a therapist, and I highly recommend listening to Dr. Les Carter and Dr. Ramani. They have incredible videos online on the subject. So I'm gonna just add my own fresh perspective based on experience about people with a set of narcissistic traits. And I will address a few of the main types of narcissists. So today we're going to cover the malignant narcissist, the grandiose, that's also known as the overt narcissist, and the vulnerable narcissist, that's also known as the covert type, and the communal narcissist. The malignant narcissist is the most malicious of them all, and I believe they are more dangerous than psychopaths. I find narcissists in general are far worse to deal with than someone who is psychopathic. But that's for another video. So the malignant one, they can be overt or maliciously covert, and other narcissists may cause harm out of necessity, but the malignant narcissist would cause harm for their own amusement, vengefulness, and malice. The overt or grandiose type is outspoken, visibly grandiose, overtly aggressive, directly nasty and disrespectful, and has no qualms about clearly expressing their self-admiration. They're often flamboyant, loud, and in love with the spotlight. They're overtly shameless, despite their deep-seated shame. They tend to overcompensate. It's usually on full drive, the overcompensation. When they are female, they're often diagnosed, though, as histrionic personality disorder. But even though there are similarities, there's some differences. The things that a grandiose type would say, here's some examples. Look at my beauty. Have you seen anyone this gorgeous? Everyone thinks you're crazy. You're not very smart, are you? I'm way smarter than you can ever be. You have a wild imagination. None of this ever happened, even if it did. I never said this. I have never done that. This can be said while they're actually doing or saying the very thing they're denying. This is their way of gaslighting, and they're very shameless about it. I am the best at this. They're just envious of me. Your apology is not enough. You have to drop to your knees, kiss my hand, and ask for forgiveness. These are things that a grandiose narcissist can easily say. They do love the spotlight. They have no obvious insecurities. You think they're completely confident. You find them often in jobs that have a spotlight, and they don't see anything wrong with self-adulation and talking about themselves all the time, of course, in a positive light. The covert, vulnerable narcissist, this is the most dangerous kind because they know how to cover their tracks. Not more dangerous than the malignant narcissist, but they can be malignant and covert, first of all. And if they're just covert, the vulnerable narcissist, they're dangerous when they're in your close friend circle or in your family, because they come off as the victim, someone who's very fragile. So this is where the danger comes in, because they can suck you dry. They're vampires, and you wouldn't know it right away. They also know how to cover their tracks, and no one sees their abuse but you. They are very skilled at abusing you and destroying you mentally and emotionally, and everybody else thinks that the roles are actually reversed. So this one is more, they use more passive aggressive methods, they're extremely frustrating to deal with than the overt narcissists. They use the silent treatment much more often. They stonewall, manipulate, but will make sure that there's nothing you can hold against them. So the way they say things are usually things that you cannot really pinpoint what they said or to make them accountable. Those around you will think you're the abusive one a lot of the times, while they are too kind to leave you. It's as if this covert narcissist is actually very patient, must be very patient and kind and understanding to be with you. Some people call this type the vulnerable narcissist. I call them snakes and hyenas based on the way they operate. Here are some things they might say. Oh, I'm such a loser. Oh, I just like to keep myself humble, so all this admiration I get from everyone doesn't get to my head. That's like kind of a roundabout way to compliment themselves. Another thing they would say, oh my God, I have to do everything myself to save the day. So again, it's a bit of a victim thing. I feel bad for my friend. His girlfriend keeps flirting with me and I don't know what to do about it. That's a covert narcissist would say things like this to, first, like this statement is a bit gossipy and it puts down their friend, but it's masked under a concern that they feel bad for their friend, that their girlfriend is flirting with them, and I don't know what to do about it. It's as though they actually want to help, but in reality, they're just letting you know that they're so irresistible that their own friend's girlfriend is flirting with them. Another thing they might say, everyone thinks I look like, and then you insert a celebrity name. Oh, I keep being told that I look like this person, and even if they look nothing like them. I'm fine, don't worry about it. Followed by sulking. When they say I'm fine, don't worry about it, it's very loaded. And the way they sulk, they rely on you taking their word for it, but they're actually sulking and they keep saying, I'm fine. I'm sorry you feel that way, or sorry you feel hurt. It's very condescending when somebody says, I'm sorry you feel hurt, because it's as though you're responsible for being hurt rather than them taking the accountability that they actually said something hurtful to you. You shouldn't feel this way. You should be glad. This is also very covert because you can't necessarily always attack the statement, but they just actually told you how you should feel or that you should be glad. A lot of times, covert narcissists, when you go to them with a serious problem and they come back to you, it lacks empathy, it lacks understanding, and they make you feel bad for feeling bad. A lot of times when they wanna violate your boundaries, or they see that you have healthy boundaries, they would say, it's okay, you're uptight. So they attack your character and call you uptight in hopes that you would want to prove to them that you're not uptight, and then you end up breaking your own boundary for them. Another thing they'd say, oh wow, and I thought my ex was crazy. This statement has several layers to it. First of all, oh wow, that's extremely condescending to whatever you did or said to them. And they mentioned their ex, so basically they're saying their ex is actually better than you, and my ex was crazy. So imagine what kind of person you are. They make you feel very small, and they convince you that you're just not a sane person and make you self-doubt. Another thing is, I'm pretty sure everyone else treats you like shit. So this statement is saying that you're better off with me, and you should be grateful that I'm with you because everybody else treats you like shit and they basically think you're shit, and I'm putting up with you. The last alternative in this list is silence. They give you the silent treatment. The silent treatment is extremely different from no contact. And I will definitely cover that in another episode, but to give somebody the silent treatment has malice to it. It makes you feel that you don't exist, that you don't matter, you don't deserve their attention. It's extremely dehumanizing that you just don't exist. So the silent treatment is done with malice, but no contact is when you encounter abuse from a person and you decide to preserve your sanity and your mental health and stay away from them. That's very different, because no contact doesn't have malice infused in it. It doesn't have an ulterior motive, except that you have the right to live in a peaceful and healthy environment away from your abuser. Covert narcissists consistently want to get a rise out of you. And the best thing to do is not to get defensive, because they will push your buttons and they're very good at reading your buttons. When you first meet them, because they appear so vulnerable, and this vulnerability makes you feel closer to them instantly, and then they gain your trust, you share your vulnerabilities in return, and that's how they have ammunition against you. They would definitely use later. So it's much better for you to get them out of your life. And if you have to deal with one, if you can't get them out of your life, then keep it superficial. You can also love people from a distance, because sometimes it's so tricky to walk away with it's not easy for everyone to just walk away from narcissists. Sometimes they're family members, sometimes they are parents, and we love our parents inherently, and it's very confusing. Sometimes people can't walk out of their jobs. They need the money, they need to feed their kids. It's not easy to find another job, so people don't always have the opportunity to leave right away. And that's when you can set healthy boundaries with yourself, but in a way that you don't internalize what the covert narcissist is trying to make you believe about yourself. Very, very tricky situation, very painful existence. So each type of narcissist will behave sometimes like the other types. So just because somebody is a covert narcissist doesn't mean they will not be grandiose. Sometimes it really depends on the day and the situation, what would work best for them in that moment. The grandiose type can also be covert. They will also use the silent treatment and stonewalling and all of that. Now, the communal narcissist, this type of narcissist irritates me so much, because they're all about virtue signaling, and a lot of people especially people that are not familiar with narcissism, they actually fall for it when a narcissist of any kind really uses like the virtue signaling. They give a lot to charity when they can afford it. They throw big galas and raise awareness and post things on social media that their heart goes out to people at war and abused animals and abandoned children. And their voice goes really high, and they're very shallow, very fake, very hypocritical, and extremely deceptive, because they appear to be very empathetic. And they do a lot of the times give to charity and help people in need, but they will never do it without an audience. They're doing it to virtue signal, to say, I am this amazing, wonderful person. And that's their only end game when it comes to charity and all of these things. It's good that whatever they do ends up helping stray animals or people at war, or whatever, donations and stuff like this. But they can often spend so much money on a charity event that could have easily gone to the charity without all the loud attention. It's very strange, because they say these things in public, but the people that are targets of their abuse, they see their other side. They can help. You can see them advocating for abused women, for example, and go home and abuse their own wives. You can see them helping strangers in need, but they neglect their own children. So it's really frustrating to people in their lives. You can also see it a lot in politicians and people in industries where lots of big corporations, they do charity work because it's tax deductible and it makes them look good, but in reality they abuse their employees. So this is a kind of narcissist that's extremely irritating, and they tend to also most types, actually, like the communal narcissist and the grandiose especially, they tend to be well liked in their communities. So if you are a victim of their abuse, it's absolutely horrifying, because no one will believe you. No one will believe that this wonderful, incredible, funny, social, friendly person is actually abusive, and then they will call you the crazy one. So these are the types of narcissists, and please remember that I'm talking about narcissism as in a set of character traits. They all share the same traits. They just different at the way they express them and the tools they use. And it is a wide spectrum. It seems that it seems now that so many people around us are narcissists, and I don't know if it's an actual rise in narcissism or if it's just exposed because now we have social media. I think it's getting worse over time, and now it's worse than ever. Not because of anything other than it's actually they have a set of traits. A lot of the traits they have, the abusive traits, are actually celebrated and respected in this community. And the other reason why I think it seems to be so common these days is because they have the social acceptance and social support. Like, a lot of people don't they don't actually make them accountable, and they don't hold them responsible. They don't confront narcissists. They don't, like in a workplace, for example, if you have a coworker who is a narcissist of any kind and is causing so much damage to your work, if you go to HR, they're gonna treat you like somebody who's rocking the boat. And a lot of times narcissists are very skilled at getting the right people on their side, especially top management. So not only are you consistently being abused by this coworker, but you're not being believed or supported by management and HR. The HR is there. You have to remember this. They are there to preserve the interest of the company. They are not really there to protect the employee. So if you're rocking the boat, if you're complaining, especially if you're complaining about a powerful narcissist, then good luck with that. It's just not going to happen unless you gather so much evidence. And even then, most likely, you're going to be the one to go. And if you're succumbing to that abuse, there's a higher probability that the narcissist is maybe making the company more money. They have a wider network with powerful people, so the scale will tip in their direction, and you're going to be a shadow of your former self. So these are the types of narcissists. You have to remember, again, that it is a spectrum, and the most important thing about this topic is not only to understand the types of narcissists and what they can do and how to detect them, but you have to fortify yourself against that. You cannot live obsessing over how they behave and who they are and how to avoid them, but you have to develop a very healthy relationship with yourself and and create a very healthy and powerful set of boundaries, and not to be afraid of narcissists. There are ways to deal with them. There are successful ways to deal with them. So in the following episodes, I will record for you every episode with very specific circumstances when you deal with different narcissists, and I will focus extra hard on topics that are rarely covered, because I want to move past the general set of traits, and I want to address some very specific situations from my experience and the experience of people that I've spoken to, that I want to make it as personalized as possible in the podcast, in order to help those in various situations. So stay tuned, and it's going to come out very, very soon. I hope this was helpful enough for today to give you an idea of the different types of narcissists and the difference between the disorder and just someone with narcissistic traits. Talk to you very soon. Be safe. Stay in your power. Thank you.